G'day humans, Chris Stead from Fine here. We're talking NFT games and the topic today is Nitro League. Now developed by Hotwire Studios, this game looks to mix Mario Kart style racing with the look and the feel of Rocket League. It sounds like a match made in heaven, but is it actually going to be any good? Look, this game is coming to mobile devices in about mid-2022, so we're going to dive in, take a look at everything to do with Nitro League. So first, a quick note on the developer, Hotwire Studios. Now these guys are a named developer, which I like, and you can find a lot of their staff on LinkedIn. These are real human beings that you can track down and check out, and they've got a wealth of experience across a number of relevant sectors. So that's all promising stuff. The only thing that really worries me a little bit about them is the fact that they don't have any named developer experience or any obvious named game deployment experience. So I haven't, nowhere on any of their LinkedIn profiles or their resumes did I find any hint that they've released and deployed a successful big name game before in the past, anyone on the team. So that's a little thing to watch out for, but at least they do exist and they do have a wealth of experience in relevant industries such as the finance sector and the software engineering sectors. But onto the game. And look, racing games generally don't have a lot of storytelling or scene setting involved. You're just racing a car around a track, right, generally. But there's a little bit of effort being put in by Hotwire here to create some sort of premise. So the game is set in 3050, well into the future. And unlike popular belief and popular media would have you believe, there hasn't been an apocalypse. Zombies aren't running around. In fact, quite the opposite. Humanity has thrived and has worked in unison with nature. So nature has thrived. Everything's green. There's lots of flora and fauna every way through the cities. Humanity spent a lot of time in the air. So a lot of our vehicles and public transport, that's in the air at this point. And only 6 nations exist on the planet at this time in the future. And they don't really have much in the way of beefs or fights or wars anymore. But when they do need to settle the differences or just work out who's the alpha dog on this future Earth, they take it to the racetrack. So race drivers have become like the big celebrities in this world, and everybody looks at these guys and girls as the most important figures on the planet. So you step into this world, this future Earth, as a budding race driver trying to climb your way out through the clans and the leagues and to claim your spot at the top of the leaderboard and your reputation as being a killer race driver. So let's talk about the gameplay. Now at this point there hasn't been a heck of a lot of footage released, and what footage has been released is very, very short on what it shows in actual gameplay, which is a little bit of concern considering it's supposed to be coming out a couple of months after what I'm saying to you now. That said, what we have seen shows a kind of Mario Kart style situation where you're placed on the track with other cars and you race around a linear track trying to get to the checkered flag first after an X amount of laps. Now, I haven't seen anything in the way of loop-the-loops or corkscrews or jumps or even alternative routes. Nothing like that has been visible so far. It looks to be just more like the typical linear tracks, a bit of elevation changes, a bit of banking, stuff like this, but nothing crazy in terms of stunts or anything like that. I have seen cars in the footage look like they're drifting and boosting, but I haven't seen any boost pads. So I'm not 100% sure if there's going to be a boost pad scenario here, or you're going to build up some sort of meter potentially by drifting or not having collisions or something like that you can then activate for a speed boost. Alternatively, boosters such as Nitro could come in the form of the Consumables which have been announced. So these are kind of one-time buffs that you can purchase pre-race and then use in a race to get some sort of racing advantage. So that's where we might see things like a Nitro or potentially an extended Nitro. Or other things that may be like help you with collision detection or cornering. Little buffs like that is what I expect from that. However, it has not been announced at the time of talking to you. So looking at the gameplay right now, looks like a pretty stock standard racer without any of the kind of stunt effects, and the power-ups would appear to be more of that kind of buff the car and not in that kind of throwing red shells, banana skins, that type of stuff. Now, as I mentioned at the top, visually it kind of strikes me a lot like Rocket League. Gameplay wise it doesn't. You're not kicking a soccer ball, or not kicking, I guess hitting with your exhaust pipe or bonnet or bull bar or whatever, a soccer ball towards a goal. There's nothing like that going on. But it does have that kind of very similar neon futuristic look about it, a bit of transparency in the tracks and so forth. It just, when I see it, it reminds me of Rocket League, and Rocket League sold hundreds of millions I think, so no problems with that. So the on-track action is only part of the experience here. There was also a kind of second half of the game which occurs in the garage. Now the garage is a personal space, a hub space for everything you're doing outside the track basically. So in here is where you're going to kind of store your screenshots and your trophies. And this is where you're going to handle your car part customizations. So you've got the actual like performance parts, and you've got cosmetics parts as well. So that's where you're going to handle all this type of stuff. You can bring in a cloning pod here. I'll get into that later. That's to do with breeding. You can get a robot involved, which also helps with the breeding process. You can store your cars here, show them, and you can even get your friends to come in. So this is where you can invite friends to come and hang in this space, have a bit of a social experience, and show off what you've got in your garage, right? Now, they have spoken about the garage having a limited amount of space, and you'll be able to upgrade your space and get a larger garage. And this kind of ties into what I think will be an NFT style experience, or it's part of the NFT process. So I'm not exactly sure how many cars you can fit in this garage before you're maxed, and you need to then invest something to upgrade your garage to a bigger space. That hasn't been made clear yet. And it also hasn't been made clear yet how deep the part customization goes. So from memory, there's 5 or 6 different components to the car that you can upgrade. I'll put a link in below to my written article, which goes into detail about all this kind of stuff a lot more than I will in this video. But you can upgrade the parts, which upgrade obviously the performance of the car on track. However, I don't know if that's something like you might get in, say, a Codemasters game or a Gran Turismo, something like that, where you can go in and like change the parts and play with the balances and the dials, and just kind of work your way into what a car wants to feel like for you, and then do test runs on the track, come back, tweak test runs. I don't think it's going to go that deep. I hope it does, but I don't think it's going to go that deep. I think it's more going to probably just stick with just adding parts on and seeing those kind of improve your performance. As mentioned, there's also the cosmetic upgrades. Now these will tie into something called reputation, which I'll go into a bit more in the sec, but reputation is kind of the big earner in this game. I think you're earning to level up your driver, and having cool cosmetics will basically add some sort of multiplier to the rep that you earn when you perform well in a race. So ahead of launch, Hotwire Studios has been talking about 3 different race modes you can play in the game. Now to start off with, you've got the free to play mode, which offers time trial experience. So that's all you're going to be doing. You're going to be racing on the track, trying to get the best times, and those times will be listed onto a leaderboard. Now, it's free to play in that you don't have to spend anything to get into these games or into these matches. It's more about practicing and honing your skills. However, it's not clear yet whether or not you can race a car that isn't an NFT. So I'll go into the NFTs in a bit in a sec, but obviously the cars in this game are the big NFTs, and can you play the free-to-play mode with a car that's not an NFT, so it's truly free, or do you have to somehow have an NFT car, either by purchasing one or by renting one from someone who has one? So it's not clear at the moment. But in the free-to-play mode, which is good, you will be able to still earn some stuff. So you can still level up your driver with your rep, level up your rep. You can also earn credits, which is an in-game currency, not a token currency. And you can also earn some like basic cosmetics and stuff in this mode. So that's pretty cool. Now then you step up to the next mode, which is solo mode. So that's when you're playing as an individual. Now here you can race head-to-head against other players. It hasn't been indicated to me how many players will be on track at one time, but you'd be hoping for at least 8. And you can also do the time trials again. However, this time to enter these solo mode, you need to pay some fuel. So fuel has not been detailed well yet. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but there's obviously some sort of expense to actually get into these races. However, the way you perform in these races gets you much more rewards. So you're still getting the credits, and you're getting the basic cosmetics and the rep earn, but you're also getting XP earn. I'll go into the difference between rep and XP in a second. You're also getting things like car blueprints, part upgrades, bigger and better cosmetics. So you're definitely getting more reward, more credits, as opposed to the lesser credits that you get in the free-to-play mode. So you're getting more, even though you've got to buy your way into these matches. The third way of playing is the team play mode. Now, team play mode is effectively the same as solo mode, except instead of racing as an individual, you're racing as a clan or a group. And it has to be a minimum of 15 of you, so it's a fairly significant group of people. And in this mode, similar thing, you're trying to perform and be the best, but your overall ranking over a series of races is based on the average of all the people in your team. So that's intriguing. I kind of like that. It's kind of cool to see how that goes. And again, the rewards are going to be quite similar to solo mode in that, but obviously going out to a bigger and broader group of people. So they're the 3 modes that have been announced at this time. There'll probably be more that will come. Look, the one thing for me that is a bit annoying is the idea that you have to pay some fuel to be able to go into the game. I mean, if that ends up being subject to cents, maybe it's not a big deal, but if that's in the dollar range, you know, it's not time zone here. We're all paying for NFTs to be involved, so that could be a little bit frustrating, but we'll see how it goes. So probably a good time to have a yarn about the things that you can actually earn in this game in terms of, you know, what they all mean. So as I mentioned, there's rep, which is your reputation. And this is the way that you level up your driver, so your character. And you've got XP. Now XP is how you level up your car. So your car can level up. It's unclear at this point whether that actually levels up your car's performance, your attributes, because each car has, you know, a range of different performance attributes, or whether that just ties into the breeding, which I'll get into in a sec. Then you've got just credits. So you got, these are just in-game credits, like you'd have in any traditional game. So they're not worth any real money. And then you've got the Nitro, which is the token. Okay, so I didn't mention that at the top actually, but you can earn Nitro in the solo mode and also in the team play mode. So if you perform well, you will get Nitro, and Nitro is got a real world value. So this will be involved in things that you can do in the game, but also with something that you can exchange out of the game to get real world cash. Now, one of the interesting things about the rep that I should point out, the reputation, is that it's not just a cumulative thing that just goes up every single time you play. Instead, it's a moving thing. So you perform well, you will get more rep. If you perform poorly, your rep will drop. And if you don't actually play for a while, so if you just don't turn on your mobile device and have a race, it'll gradually erode as well. So this is quite interesting. It's obviously there to encourage you to play the game a lot. And I hope they're not too aggressive on that erode thing, because I don't like mobile games that try and force you to play constantly. But by the same token, it should, if it's done correctly, tie into the matchmaking in a way to make sure that, you know, you're getting players of comparative skill, but also in comparative growing skill and likelihood of being playing match made together more. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So let's talk NFTs. Now, as mentioned, the car is obviously the big NFT here, and the one that's going to be the one that you see first and want first. However, it's not the only NFT. So the part upgrades that I was telling you about before, and the cosmetics that you can acquire either by earning them in race or buying them, also NFTs. But these obviously apply to your car too. So it'll be interesting to see how your NFT car's value changes and increases by given the other NFT parts and cosmetics that you add to it. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. The garage as well is an NFT. Now, I don't think that's the base garage, the hub that you get when you start, but if you upgrade the size of it, it becomes an NFT. Now, we've seen this system kind of work before. Big Time's a game that I think of. I've done a video of that. You should definitely check that out. The game's looking really promising, but that's got a thing called Space, which is also a kind of hub, which is an NFT that you can expand. But they have mentioned, I have seen in some of their documentation that they are looking at a track editor in the future. So I've got a feeling that user-created tracks may become the land of this game that people build, and if they get raced, they get some sort of residual income from, or if they get raced on. So I'm not sure if the garage will actually be the land in this. I have to wait and see. Now, there is a breeding process. It's called fusion cloning in this, and they're launching with 5,000 Genesis cars, which are kind of your original cars. And you can, once you've maxed these up to the full XP level, and then you've got a list of other things that I put in my written article that you need to have as well, like in terms of Nitro tokens and reputation and a robot and a cloning pod. There's things you've got to have in place before you can breed. You can breed two cars to create a new car, which will obviously have some of the attributes of its parent. Now, what's interesting in this game, which I haven't seen, I don't think in any other game, is that the new car will actually be more powerful than the Genesis cars. So, or the cars that precede it. So usually what we see in this is that if you get into the ground level with these things and get one of the original cars, they're the ones that are going to be the most strongest on track, or the most strongest, most powerful, most desired. And they probably will to some extent always be like that. However, the cars that they produce, which will then enter the ecosystem and be purchased by other players, will actually be a stronger variant of their parents. Which I think is really quite cool. And also those Genesis cars won't get burned. So often when you do some breeding, those older NFTs are burned and destroyed. That's not going to be the case in this game. It just XP is going to be set to 0. So after the process of doing this, you're going to end up with, you have to start with the 2 NFTs, you're going to get a third NFT, and the 2 NFTs, you're going to keep those, but they're going to be back at XP. So you're going to have to go through that kind of leveling up process and experience yet again to get them back up to a point where they might be able to breed a second time. I haven't heard anything about a breeding cap at this point. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out, but that's the NFTs in this game and the breeding process. In terms of buying into the game, I had a quick look on Terra Virtua, which is a marketplace that has some of the cars for sale. And those cars are going from about $100 US for the least desirable. And I've seen kind of the more desirable that are up there going for about $2,000 to $2,500. So that's what you're looking at investing there to get an NFT car at this point. So if you're a scholar looking to get into this game and earn some money, obviously I've spoken about the ways that you can earn by performing in races and earning Nitro. And obviously you can perform by we can earn by getting these NFTs, either earning them through race performance is probably going to be the way that most people will be able to come across them. Now, if you cannot afford to buy in to begin with and get an actual NFT car from this game, you can of course rent one. So they have set up a driver sponsorship concept so that someone who owns a car NFT but doesn't want to race or wants someone who's a better racer to be able to level it up can then set up a smart contract with another player. And it hasn't been made clear yet whether that's going to be an upfront fee-based thing or whether it's going to be revenue share. I would tend to think it'll be the second because that's the way they should all be, in my opinion. That's the fairest approach. So we'll see how that unfolds, but you can obviously therefore play this game if you can't afford to get an NFT car. Now, speaking of the cars themselves, there is a really decent variety in this game. So the way that it breaks up is that there's 8 different classes of car, and they're each kind of defined by an era of history between the year 2000 and the year 3050. And so that's kind of describes their look and stuff, but they're quite diverse. I've seen rally cars, drift cars, muscle cars, there's bikes, there's hovers, there's really futuristic ones. So there's quite a different range of vehicles that you'll be able to get. Not all of them have been seen thus far, but there is quite a range. And those different classes have base attributes with them, and those base attributes get enhanced or buffed based on the nationality of your driver that you assign yourself with. So when the game starts, you've got to kind of choose a nationality to be part of, and then speak to one of the elders of one of the clans and try and get into one of the clans, and this is how you get the right to, I guess, race in this universe, in this world. So the way that the clan that you go for will have subtle buffs that will improve the performance of your vehicle in some way, shape or form, and then the way that you can actually change clans at any point that you want as well, but you just got to obviously be mindful that different clans have different buffs. So you might move from one clan to another, and that may affect the way that your favorite car actually performs on track. Now, the cars being NFTs, they do have different rarities. I believe there's 5, there might be 6. Apologies if I got that wrong. Different rarities of cars. The higher the rarity, the higher the base buffs are on the stats for that particular class of car. Because obviously the different classes of car have slightly different performances when you look at handling and speed and all those types of things that they split up between the cars. So that's kind of how the whole entire car concept works in Nitro League. Now, I'm really looking forward to a killer, exciting racing game in the NFT space, but I'm not 100% sure Nitro League is it. The early footage I've seen just really isn't that exciting or exhilarating, and so I want to see more quality gameplay footage before I'm really buying in on this. And even though the developer has been very vocal about the point that they don't want to play to win situation, the reality is in this game that if you can get a higher rarity car and you can upgrade it with more and more parts, it is going to perform the performance of that is going to improve the performance of that car. So that would tend to tie to a pay to win situation. What can negate that is some really quality matchmaking that only puts you against people with very like-minded cars. That will negate that issue and just allow you to, I guess, have more fun with a higher spec car. But look, even though I'm standoffish at this point, there is definitely a game here. This isn't just pie in the sky. There is something that is being built, and it's being built by real people. So it's definitely worth keeping your eye on from that regard, especially if you're a racing fan. I'm Chris Stead from Finder. Thank you very much for watching. Please check out my other videos, and until next time, happy gaming.